Chapter 36 Beneath the Pipes and the Pulse of Legacy. The next morning, Prague was wrapped in a mist that made even the sun seem uncertain. Louis and Lady Elizabeth departed quietly at dawn, their breath hanging between them like unspoken questions. The entrance to the cathedral's organ hall was hidden beneath a carved arch, obscured by ivy and thyme. Louis pressed the pendant into the indentation above the lintel. The door opened inward with a moan. The chamber beyond was circular, lined with symbols etched in stone. Moorish swirls, Celtic knops, Ojibwe pictographs. A place where memory was inscribed without borders. At its center stood the Black Mare. She was taller than expected, midnight coated with eyes like molten obsidian. No ropes, no reins, only calm authority. A woman stepped forward, cloaked in sable, with silver rings on each finger. "You brought the witness, and you came with truth." Louis bowed. Elizabeth curtsied, graceful, unafraid. "What is his place?" Louis asked. "The crossing, where riders once gathered before dividing the world into watchers and wielders. The last oath was taken here, broken soon after." The woman gestured to a circle of 12 carved stones. "One for each legacy. 10 fell to power. One vanished. One remains. The witness line." She stepped closer to Thunder. He did not flinch. "The horse remembers, in ways you do not yet understand." Tabitha, Edwina, Frank, and Sebastian arrived moments later, led by the girl from the square. The woman spoke again. "The mare rides at moments of fracture, when truth must rise or fall. You have named it, shared it, but have you sworn to protect it?" The group stood within the ring. Thunder neighed. Wellington blinked solemnly from atop a velvet cushion that had mysteriously followed them. "Then let the vow be made." One by one, each laid a hand on Thunder's mane. The mare circled them once. The woman's voice rose like music. "Do you swear to ride not for gain, but for memory, not for power, but for witness?" "We do," they replied. The stones glowed faintly. A wind blew through the sealed chamber. Then stillness. The woman bowed. "The line is secured until next it is needed." Outside, the cathedral bells rang noon. Louis looked to Elizabeth. She offered her gloved hand. He took it. And in the quiet that followed, the witness line moved forward. One step, one hoofprint, one vow stronger than silence. Chapter 37 Velvet Shadows and the Truth That Stalks. The next day in Prague shimmered too brightly, as if the world tried too hard to seem normal after something sacred. Louis and Lady Elizabeth walked the river path in companionable silence, their gloved hands not quite touching, but never drifting far. Behind them, Thunder led Wellington like a bodyguard with whiskers. But Edwina's unease had returned. "The oath protects the legacy," she said, scanning telegrams. "But it doesn't stop those who want it erased." Tabitha arrived with fresh worry. "I intercepted this at the embassy, a coded message referencing the concordance, the witness line, and a price. Frank frowned. Someone's trying to sell the story, or end it. They followed the trail to a theater in the old city. A show was playing called The Riders of Memory, a thinly veiled parody of their own journey, complete with suspiciously familiar characters and a suspicious lack of cats. Sebastian bought a program. Funded by a publishing syndicate tied to the Hawthorne estate. In a box above the crowd sat a man in a blue cravat, watching the stage with the serenity of someone planning a fire. Edwina entered his box during intermission. Your actors are bold. Your story counterfeit. Is it? The man replied. Or am I simply making history profitable again? Lady Elizabeth appeared beside her. Profit is a coward's version of legacy. Lewis, quietly in the aisle behind them, added, And we're not cowards. The man stood. Then prove it. Tomorrow, at the observatory dome, if you're not afraid to let the stars judge. He vanished before they could stop him. The next night, they climbed the old observatory tower. Thunder waited in the courtyard below. Wellington sat in a telescope case. Inside, the man in the blue cravat stood beneath a celestial chart. I want your documents, your oaths, your horse. Why? Tabitha asked. Because people forget, and forgetting is power. Edwina stepped forward. You think the witness line is just a tale to trade, but it's a seed, and we've already planted it. The man smirked. Then let's see just how far it goes. He pulled a small vial from his pocket, dark ink mixed with something older. One drop on Thunder's coat, he said, and no one remembers. Not the horse, not you, not even history. Lewis moved first. Wellington leaped from the telescope with a hiss. Lady Elizabeth caught the vial midair. Frank tackled the man with the sort of theatrical flair the real play lacked. The vial shattered on the stone floor. Silence. Then Edwina said, Perhaps now you understand. We do not ride alone. The man was taken away. Later, they stood atop the tower as stars wheeled overhead. Sebastian raised a hand. What now? Edwina looked east. Now we tell the story again, in every language, in every form, until forgetting is no longer possible. And thunder neighed beneath the moon, because the story had galloped too far to be stopped. And the witness line would run forever forward. Chapter 38. Horseshoe Prints Across Continents. They returned briefly to Maplewood, just long enough for Edwina to repack her trunk and for Thunder to inspect his paddock like a general surveying a field. Tabitha pinned a fresh map to the library wall. It stretched across continents. There's been interest from the Ottoman Archives, the Calgary Stampede Historical Society, and a mysterious librarian from Cairo who signs his letters with a hoof print. Which means, Sebastian said, we're going global. Frank read aloud a telegram. To the writers of Witness, Kenya awaits. So does a story only your horse can unlock. Lady Elizabeth closed her notebook with a soft snap. I've never been to Africa, but I have the perfect hat. Lewis smiled at her. We'll need your diplomacy and your taste in linen. Their first stop, Nairobi. They were met by a Maasai scholar named Nieku, who greeted Thunder with a gentle whistle and offered Wellington dried beef from her own pouch. There are oral records here of a pale stallion arriving during the British Protectorate, Nieku said, but its rider left no name, only a scroll. In a red clay hut lined with beadwork, they were shown the scroll, sealed with wax and fur. That's sanctuary script, Tabitha said, tracing the pattern. But the dialect, it's layered. Cree, Arabic, Kikuyu, a braid of truce. And look, Lewis added, a hoofprint pressed into the wax, not forged, real. Thunder's ancestor? Edwina whispered. Or Thunder himself? Frank blinked. Time travel? Legacy, Sebastian clarified, but no less powerful. They followed clues from village to village, listening to elders, watching reenacted ceremonies, and collecting fragments of truth. One rider spoke of a dream, a black mare racing alongside a lion, guiding him to safe passage. The mare is real, Edwina said, and her memory runs deeper than ink. Before departing, Neku handed them a leather pouch. This was buried beneath the scroll. It's yours. Inside was a small bone carving, a rider and a cat, side by side. Wellington purred. Thunder lowered his head. As they boarded the train north toward Egypt, Lewis turned to Lady Elizabeth. Everywhere we go, someone remembers. And we make it harder for the world to forget, she replied, brushing dust from his collar. Outside the window, Africa rolled past in ochre and light, and in the sky, clouds shifted into the shape of hooves. The witness line had crossed oceans. Now it would cross time. Chapter 39. Sand, Stars, and the Seal of the Nile. Cairo buzzed like a well-guarded secret. The city moved with both ancient grace and modern defiance. Thunder seemed to adjust instantly to the rhythm, while Wellington adopted a suspicious fondness for mint tea. They were welcomed at the Biblioteca Misraya by its chief archivist, Zainab El Said, a woman with ink-stained cuffs and a gaze that missed nothing. We've guarded something, she said quietly. It isn't ours, but it remembers you. She led them to a vault beneath the restored Fatimid wing. There, sealed in glass and lit by filtered sunlight, sat a bunch of scrolls and a worn leather halter. This was found in Aswan, near the ruins of a Roman garrison, Zainab explained. Its markings match nothing in our records, except this. She unrolled a scroll. It bore a symbol, the black mare rearing over the pyramids. The witness line ran here long ago, Lewis said, before borders, before maps. Lady Elizabeth, standing beside him, brushed her fingers across the halter's clasp. And it still runs. The scroll detailed a forgotten agreement. 3 empires, 1 horse, no language, only hoofprint seals. This, Sebastian said, is older than ink. This is memory made material. At sunset, they were invited to a gathering on the Giza Plateau. Bedouin riders performed a ceremonial passage, a mirrored reenactment of the scroll. That's not performance, Tabitha whispered. That's living record. One elder approached Thunder. He placed his forehead against the stallion's. He has returned, the elder said, as the story said he would. Edwina felt her breath catch. The mare walks the desert wind. The witness walks beside her. Back in the city, Zainab handed Edwina a final gift, a clay stamp with Thunder's symbol fused into its base. When the next truth must be sealed, she said, use this. It holds more than wax. As they packed for departure, Lewis stood alone on the balcony of their quarters, Cairo glowing beneath him. Lady Elizabeth joined him, quiet at first. Would it be presumptuous to say this feels like the beginning of something? He asked. She took his hand. Not presumptuous, she said, just long overdue. Wellington leaped to the railing and blinked solemnly. Thunder whickered from the courtyard, and the stars above Cairo, old, loyal, watching, blinked back. The witness line ran through the sand now. Next, it would pass through the storm. Chapter 40. Thunder in the Desert and a Crown in the Dust. They crossed the Sinai at dawn, the air dry with anticipation. Their destination? Petra. But first, a detour summoned by the most unexpected telegram of all. Frank read it aloud, again and again. To Lady Featherstone and the Riders of Witness, His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, requests your company in Wadi Rum. Discretion advised. The witness line has drawn interest from high places. He is coming to the desert? Sebastian asked, incredulous. Oh, he's already there, Edwina replied, and he wants answers. Or protection. Possibly both. Wellington, unimpressed by royal protocol, climbed into the saddlebag with a determined blink. They arrived at the wadi by camel and thunder. The red sand stretched to eternity, broken only by stone arches and tents sewn with velvet. One such tent bore a gold-stitched insignia, faint but unmistakable, the prince's personal standard. Inside, under a canopy of stars and lanterns, stood a tall man in travel-worn khaki with a knowing smile. Lady Featherstone, he said, your reputation precedes you, and so, it seems, does your horse. Thunder neighed softly. Lewis bowed. Lady Elizabeth curtsied with barely concealed amusement. We're honored, sir, Edwina said, then added, though also curious. The prince gestured to a table of maps, scrolls, and a small obsidian horse statue. These documents were intercepted en route to a syndicate vault in Istanbul. They reference the witness line, the Black Mare, and a projected intervention in Europe. Tabitha leaned in. They're preparing to silence the story, globally. And to rewrite it, the prince added, with the crown's help, unknowingly. I need you to verify what's true before any treaty is signed. Frank raised a brow. You're asking us to protect the monarchy from itself? No, said the prince. I'm asking you to protect the truth from everyone. Lady Elizabeth studied him carefully. And why now? The prince looked at Thunder. Because my great-grandfather once rode a stallion marked by a seal he didn't understand. I want to understand it before I wear the crown. They spent the night reviewing scrolls and sharing tea under stars that had watched empires rise and fall. Lewis and Elizabeth sat close, fingers just brushing. Do you trust him? He asked. Not yet, she replied, but I trust the horse. The next morning the prince mounted a desert-trained mare and rode beside Edwina. "If I ever forget," he said quietly, "remind me of this, of him." Thunder galloped beside them across the red plain, kicking dust into the air. Atop the tallest dune the prince dismounted and placed a small banner, plain, silver, etched only with the witness seal. Wellington pawed at it, then sat beside it with approval. The journey continued, but now it did so with the weight and the watching of a future king.